Hey, hi. You're listening to Infamous Chronicles. Yeah. It's my dad and his 3 friends. Just kidding. Love you, Dad.
All right, and welcome to a special episode of the Infamous Chronicles. I know we already released one episode this week, but since President Trump is going to become our president this week, we decided to double down. And on your roster tonight, I am super excited, but first I have to turn down my mic because it's super loud, so I apologize for that. Hopefully I sound a little bit better now.
There you go.
Much better. All right, so tonight, it's taken 2 long, rock-hard years for this to happen, but we finally have Firefox back on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be back.
We are very excited to have you. Todd is back for his second episode as an official team member.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And from her Chronicles, Michelle Stevenson is gracing us with her presence.
I'm here, motherfuckers.
And she's actually going to be leading you guys through this tricky topic tonight. But before we get to that, if you haven't done so already, do us and yourself a favor. Remember to go to audibletrials.com/TIC. You get yourself a free book, compliments of the show, and you get a 30-day trial to get access to as many books as you want. And that's actually compliments of Michelle. She hooked that up for you.
I totally did.
She didn't really, but we give credit to a different person every week.
I did it all. I put the mics together, and then I did the Audible Trials
and then
sponsorship.
She can't even remember the name of the people that she's in the room with.
Oops.
Yeah. So that's number 1. Number 2. For our show is produced by our parent company, Infamous Works. And we went from being a single podcast show to we now actually have 4 shows. And we call them our family of podcasts, sister shows, whatever term you want to use. But we're really excited because they're all members of this show in some capacity or other that have now evolved onto doing their own thing. So first and foremost, we take up your whole week, actually. So the Infamous Chronicles airs every week at Tuesdays, as you already know because you're listening to the show and you're awesome. Wednesday nights belong to Casey Moran and Discussing Depression, which actually, I hate to admit this, but the guy is doubling us in numbers, that son of a bitch. It's a really great show on mental health. He's got a lot of really awesome guests. So that's Wednesdays. Thursdays belong to Michelle and her crew of Mila and Jane, and they are Her Chronicles. That show can be found on, now it's on iTunes and Google Play, and it's coming to iHeart along with the rest of our shows. And then Fridays belong to myself, Augie Rocks, and from the Martian Landscape Maestro, we have a show called Marching Robots. So that is the Infamous Works lineup. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please check out those other shows. Follow them on Twitter. Tell them they're awesome. Send them naked pictures. They will appreciate it. But for tonight, I'm going to pass the mic over to Michelle, who's going to lead us into a tricky topic tonight.
Very tricky.
Bear with us. And remember that these are only our opinions, and we encourage you to go out, search your own opinions, find your own facts. Whether you agree with us or not is completely irrelevant. It just comes down to education and intelligence. And here we go.
All right. Well, tonight's topic for me is a very sensitive one. And obviously, there have been moves in the media this week about defunding Planned Parenthood. Now, the first thing I do want to touch up on is I think everybody in this room has had experience one way or another with Planned Parenthood, whether it be high school, college, whichever. And so really quickly around the room, I just want to hear a very tiny snippet of like your first time experience and what did you experience and was it the best care that you ever received?
Let's go ladies first.
Okay. I've been to Planned Parenthood so many times. I'm a frequent monthly donor to their cause. If I was a doctor, I'd work for them. I absolutely love them. They took care of me when I found a lump in my breast and I didn't have health insurance. They took care of me when I needed birth control. They've basically always been a friend and ally that I can count on.
Nice. Todd?
Well, my experience with Planned Parenthood is when my wife and I were actually first dating, and she was pregnant. And we didn't know where our relationship was going, so we visited Planned Parenthood and had an abortion. So it's sad now, the fact that we're married, almost 10 years together now, and we have 3 beautiful children now. And so, we think about it, we talk about it, and it's sad. But the experience, how awful it is to go through it. But they were great, like the system itself was I thought was pretty fantastic.
For me, I've done 2 Plan Bs. So we went in and got the Plan B pill, the morning after pill from Planned Parenthood. And one thing that I really liked about it is when I went in, there's obviously a waiting room full of people, a myriad of different nationalities and ages, and nobody's judging anybody. You don't feel judged in there. You don't feel like gross or small or like you're making a bad choice. And the girl that I was dating at the time, they went out of their way to educate her on the choice she was making with the Plan B pill, but not in any kind of like a condescending fashion. It was just like, here's what's going to happen with your body. Here's the long-term effects, if any, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't like, oh, you shouldn't do this. This is blah, blah. So I had a similar experience to Todd, and it sucked being on the guy side of it. I'm not going to say that I have any idea what that felt like for her, but emotionally, it was a shit show for me too. And but they were really great. And having a daughter myself, I couldn't imagine. Hopefully, I think I'm a pretty kick-ass dad, and hopefully, I wouldn't be involved in these decisions. But I pray that a establishment like that exists for her when she becomes sexually active. Can't believe that word just came out of my mouth, but it's going to happen, and hopefully, she'll have access to care like that. Okay.
I just want to share my experience. I was a nurse at Planned Parenthood between the year of 2013 and 2014. I can't say anything more excellent. I think that was the best training I've ever received in regards of being a patient advocate first. And what that means is you represent the patient in itself to make sure they don't feel cold in any way or like they don't feel like they can't open up. And for me, that was like the biggest part of establishing my nursing rapport over time. There's all the access I received in high school and in college. And I wouldn't be the person that I am, or at least as knowledgeable, if it weren't for Planned Parenthood. So for me, this is very scary, and I don't understand why Republicans are trying to move forward with, even Texas just passed like Medicaid defunding from Planned Parenthood.
Let me, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you and stop you. For our listeners that aren't aware, what is being presented right now and what is being threatened?
So what is being threatened basically is to remove all Medi-Cal funding from Planned Parenthood. And there's Medicare, which is obviously for over 65. And there's Medi-Cal for patients between 18 and 65. And they're trying to remove that funding permanently from all Planned Parenthoods. Now, for the past couple of years, since it's been, I think agree with me on this one, since they've been, threatened by the government, they've been accepting donations from every single patient. Or at least asking. You don't have to, but they ask. Mm-hmm. And so they have enough to where the abortions are basically covered from Planned Parenthood with no government funding at all. Mm-hmm. So every time I talk to this about somebody, they say, oh, it's what's the word? It's an abusive system. It's not when you're providing education, I think. That's just me though. So I don't know. This is the problem. What kind of world do you think we would live in if Planned Parenthood was taken away?
Well, let's start with this. Since you just spoke, Firefox.
Yeah.
Explain kind of like the Cliff's Notes version of what Planned Parenthood is and what it provides.
Okay, well, Planned Parenthood is a multifaceted healthcare organization that provides healthcare to any walk of life. It doesn't matter your income. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your gender. Planned Parenthood receives what's called Title X funding, which is government assistance, $50 million to cover all of that healthcare. However, it does not cover a single penny to abortion. Abortion is privately funded. So stripping Planned Parenthood of that $500 million is removing healthcare access to people in desperate need of it. So that's Pap smears, that's breast cancer screenings, that's cervical screenings, that's STD screenings, that's sexual education and awareness, that's contraceptives, that's access to the Plan B, the emergency contraceptive pill, which is not an abortion. It's education and it's healthcare that's being taken away under the guise that abortions will decrease, when statistically, when you offer birth control and education and access to healthcare, abortions decrease. When you educate, abortions and teen pregnancy decrease. So from a mathematical standpoint, from statistics, and from science, which seems to be completely ignored in this entire conversation and argument on why Planned Parenthood should be defunded, it makes absolutely no sense to remove it. And I want to know why, if you're so interested in defunding Planned Parenthood, what that's going to do is that's going to increase the amount of breast cancer that we see, the mortality rate for breast cancer. It's going to increase the poor care that for women for prenatal screenings, because
I'd like to add that it's also going to increase more episodes of Teen Mom.
Definitely more. They went the two clinics that they closed on the East Coast,
is, producing more episodes of Teen Mom.
Basically,
there have been HIV outbreaks every time they close a clinic. If you look at the facts, defunding Planned Parenthood is going to hurt everyone.
That's the thing I think where a lot of people don't understand is like when you take the average citizen and you say the words Planned Parenthood, they think abortion.
Right.
You know, and that's what the problem is that that's the rap that Planned Parenthood has, whereas in fact only 3% of their business goes to abortion.
Exactly.
You know, and you have 97% goes to, like you said, education and, you know,
healthcare,
STD testing, and it's so good in the communities that they're providing for, because they're in the poor communities. You know, like you don't see them necessarily everywhere. You know, they're there for exactly what they're being used for. But the problem is they got the rap for abortion, and so you got those pro-life, which there's nothing wrong with your opinion of pro-life, but you're attacking the wrong organization.
Right.
Yeah. So when you walk into a Planned Parenthood and you get screamed and yelled at by the picketers that are saying, you know, pro-life, how dare you walk in here? You might not even be pregnant and you're walking in there.
There are so many clinics in, I want to say, poor socioeconomic parts of Los Angeles, like East LA and things like that, that have their own private clinics that charge for abortions, because I'm going to share my story, but I had one. And for me, I'm very pro-choice because that decision changed my life. If it wasn't for the decision I made, I wouldn't be as busy. I wouldn't be as active in being a nurse and being a comic, being able to work full time in both things that I love. I wouldn't be doing any of this, or the podcast. Maybe I probably wouldn't have time if I had a kid.
What?
So,
fuck that kid then.
Yeah, I got 3 kids. I'm still here.
But so I mean, if I could put everyone's business out here, everyone in this room has had an abortion through Planned Parenthood, right?
No.
Mine was through Mine was in East LA, and then I made my ex pay for it. It was $600.
That's it?
For the pill, and the pill was. It was awful. It wasn't
brutal.
a good. It's brutal.
It's a horrible experience, you know, and that's the thing. It's like I can't imagine being a woman going through something like that, you know. And I applaud my wife for dealing with what she had to deal with, because at that particular time we weren't together, you know. So it's I can't speak for it because I'm not that person in that person's shoes, but I couldn't imagine going through it, you know. And each time my wife was pregnant, I even told her, it was like, I can't imagine growing a human being inside of me. Like I couldn't imagine what that feels like, you know. Only you women do, or you guys are the ones that understand that. So even when it came down to the abortion, it's her decision. It's not mine. It's hers, because ultimately it's her body. It's what she's going to decide to do with it. And that's, in the end, where like you have like Bernie Sanders speaking out. It's like, it's the women's choice.
Yeah.
Like, stop trying to tell them what they can do and what they can't do with their body when it comes to the abortion piece of it. But in the end, that's only 3% of their business, as we talked about. So that's the whole uproar. It's about abortion, not Planned Parenthood. And what people need to understand is Planned Parenthood is not about abortion. It's about education and the healthcare of women.
I heard this great theory, and it's unfortunate that it will only ever exist as a hypothesis, but I'm not saying this to sound like a chauvinist, so hear me all the way out on it. But when it comes to like women's rights and abortion, right, it all pertains to women. Like Todd just said, it's your choice. We can have as much mutual like opinion in a respectful way if you're a couple as we can have, but ultimately you're going to be the one that decides at the end of the day. And it's like, well, shut that down and shut this down, and women do this and they're terrible. Let's burn them at the cross and all these things. But it's unfortunate that there isn't an ironic twist of that coin, where there's not something on the man's body that they can make a choice on whether to have or to not have.
You mean a vasectomy?
No, I'm just saying, like, there's no way for men to be attacked the way that women are attacked with the choices they make with their body. Because the hypothesis I heard is that if that kind of choice existed for men, there wouldn't be an argument.
Well, right. And to your exact point, defunding Planned Parenthood is going to remove access to birth control, but condoms aren't going out of gas stations. So it's an attack on women. It's an attack on poor people.
Women buy condoms too. Just saying.
I understand that, but if you're going to do it completely. Don't put it as a guise to, oh, this is a pro-life movement. If that's the case, appeal to the Supreme Court and go after Roe v. Wade.
Right.
But don't go after an organization that saves lives.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. And if anything, if you guys want to, instead of defunding something that is so good for people, how about funding education? You know,
there you go.
When I was in elementary school, they had sex ed. They don't have that anymore. You know, they don't want people, and then they leave it to the parents to talk about it, but then what do you have now is kids going on the internet that are like 12, 13, fighting strangers that come and pick them up. You know, so where's the education at?
Yeah, do you want your daughter to learn via Snapchat and Tinder?
No, hell no. I got 3 daughters.
No, I think
educated.
I think this generation now with the tech boom, I don't know what age you're deciding your daughter to have a cell phone or not, but she can find out way sooner than later and from her friends.
I read this really scary book when I was like becoming a new dad called Smart Daughters, Smart Fathers. And it was a really incredible book. It's by an author named Meg Myers. I saw her do a symposium. And it was incredible in the way that it scared the fuck out of me. Mm-hmm. But it scared the fuck out of me in a really great way. And it led down the road of like, a father is the first thing that a little girl is ever going to fall in love with. Mm-hmm. And the way that you treat your wife is how she's going to expect to be treated by her future husband. Mm-hmm. So like if she brings home some douchebag, you can go, well, that was the way I treated my wife, so this is what I get. And all these little things. And it's really scary. But one of the points that she was making is that as early as 4th grade now, they have this like, she used the word barbaric sex ed. Like these, pretty much like a Cliff Notes version of sex ed, bare budget. And they literally offered, she showed snippets from the California sex ed source material, and snippets were alternatives to sexual intercourse to avoid pregnancy. Suggested alternatives are anal sex and oral sex.
You gotta be kidding.
No, I'm not.
Well, there's some girls that do that to say that they're still a virgin.
No, there are Christians that solely believe that if they have anal sex, because it's not in the Bible, they're still virgins.
Right.
Listen,
and like anal,
I'm all for anal sex, and I'm all for oral sex, and I'm all for whatever agreed upon sexual intercourse you have with your partner is your
consensual.
Business. Yeah, agreed upon consensual. That being said, though, I am not for an educator to tell my daughter or anyone's daughter, Todd's daughter for that, or Firefox has sons, so it's different.
No, it's not different. Don't.
But I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't want them to be taught that anal sex is an alternative to losing your virginity. Give me a fucking break. If my daughter came home and told me that she learned that in school, ooh, you would see me on the news the next day for sure.
I think we need to remove losing your virginity as a thing. Your virginity does not determine your worth. It is not a qualifier.
Wait a minute. Determine worth. There are women, though, that are getting paid lots of money for the V card. That's, I don't know. Did you see that girl who paid off her college?
Yeah, but...
I'm just saying.
But it does...
There's monetary value.
You're talking monetary. You're not talking self-worth.
Oh, no. Yes. Absolutely.
Right.
Firefox is saying self-worth.
Right.
Yeah, you can't put... There's a lot of pressure on women to say, like, by the time, really, if I think about it, I would say, like, by 8th grade is when I started hearing that girls were losing their virginity. And by, like, 10th grade, most people weren't virgins. I myself didn't lose my virginity until 11th grade. And I would get teased for it. And I was, like, behind the bell curve. And it's just crazy to me to think, like, oh, I have to think about that with my own kid. And I wasn't even driving yet. And it's just, that's why I can't have a son, because I'd be a total hypocrite. I'll be the first to admit it like a man that I would be a hypocrite.
Well, you just got to educate both. You know, you got to educate your sons as well as you educate your daughters. You know, just like how you mentioned how you treat your wife, your daughter's going to bring that home in a boyfriend or whatever. But it's the same goes with the son. You know, how you treat your wife, your son's going to treat his wife. You know, so it's education on both parts, and that's the biggest thing I think is wrong, at least in this country, is that porn is so accessible, but education is not.
Oh, great point.
Very accessible.
Point.
One click and you're there.
You can click on anything and just boom, you got naked, all kinds of fun stuff going on.
Yeah, whatever naked you want.
Whatever you want, you know. But yet, try to find education on sexual orientations and anything like that, and you can't find it.
And if you do, it's all biased.
Exactly.
I saw this really... I'm sorry. Were you itching to say something?
Nope.
Okay. Because I know you tend to itch. I saw this really great TED Talks. If you guys are watching TED Talks, there are really great messages in TED Talks that you can actually sit down. A friend of mine in Arizona, they go out of their way to find TED Talks, and they watch them as a couple, and then they watch them with their kids, and then they actually do Q&A after as a family, which I thought was the coolest idea. They sit down with a pizza and they talk about how did you feel about what you learned and blah, blah, blah. And they're careful about what they choose, of course. But I watched this really great one and I shared it with him, and he watched it with his kids, and his youngest son is 8. And I was like, ooh, that's a little young. But so the whole talk was on masturbation to pornography.
Oh.
And the guy was like, hey, look, everyone's going to masturbate. Guys and girls, we all masturbate, right? There are things to masturbate to healthily, and there are things not to. You can masturbate to pictures of your spouse. You can masturbate to... I'm not saying I agree with this or not. It's just a point to make. You can masturbate to pre-approved pictures. And he was saying, like in his example, if I was super into this chick and my wife said it was okay, I could masturbate to her. Or if she was super into Ryan Gosling, yeah, then she could masturbate
like
to him.
the way that you are?
Yeah, like the way that I am. I masturbate to Ryan Gosling. So that was cool. But then the moral of the thing that was just really made me feel like a piece of shit was they were saying, like, and it's obviously true when you stop and think about it. It's like every time you masturbate to a girl, 2 things are happening. 1, you're masturbating to the pretty much slavery of someone's daughter, which is really scary. And 2, that you are masturbating to basically like a submissive, paid version of your wife that she is not. And like when I heard that, I like shared it with him, and they watched it as a family. You know this person. We used to work with him at the gym. And so he called me back and he's like, oh my God, this is what we learned from it. And here's blah, blah, blah. And, you know, my wife and I were talking about it, and I masturbated to this and blah, blah. And I was like, wow, that's great. So anyway, the whole point of that was that you can go out of your way to find educational resources. Unfortunately, they're not streamlined. They're few and far between, and they're very biased. So you have to like filter through them to see if they're appropriate for your children.
But it's also really great launch points to have those conversations. Mm-hmm. Because my son's 13. My oldest is 13. And
what? You have a teenager!
I know.
Crazy. Crusty towels everywhere.
In Firefox?
Not yet.
No.
I mean, not that I found, so.
He's just really good at hiding it.
I know.
Right.
I've already gone under his bed. There's something there.
One thing I want to add as a side note. Firefox has raised an amazing young man. He's a really great kid.
Thank you. He's pretty incredible.
While I'm on this topic, Todd, despite the fact that he has 3 daughters and they have opposing schedules, so they're very rarely home together, have 3 wonderful daughters. They've done really great as parents. So I'm in the presence of 2 really good parents. And your baby or your new baby daddy is a super great guy too.
He is.
You know I have a giant crush on him.
I know you do. I know.
So sorry.
That's why I didn't bring him.
Yeah. Finish your point. I apologize for interrupting. I just want to give
fine.
you guys credit. Thank you.
You know, I think you have to address what is mainstream and what is easily accessible and have those conversations, because I think without that sort of inspiration, as vulgar as it may seem, it's very easy to have conversations about sexual slavery and about trafficking and about rape and how to be, for my son, what's really scary about raising boys is raising them to know when you don't necessarily have a no to have a no. I have to
Can you
raise.
Elaborate on that?
Yeah, I have to raise my child to go to high school parties and know that when she's drinking, he could be charged with rape.
Oh, so to be intelligent,
super aware of the criminal aspects of his innocent behavior.
Yeah,
especially in our prevalent rape culture.
Let me ask you this, if you don't mind, if this is too personal. When was your son? When did you start speaking to your son about sex, even in the most casual way?
We've used proper anatomical terms through his entire life. So he's not, it's not a wee-wee, you know, it's not, you know, whatever a Pikachu, it's a penis, it's a vagina.
Yeah.
Okay. And we talk about it normally so that it's not taboo. You know, he has had a smartphone since he was, I want to say 8, because his dad and I, split up when he was 1.5. So the joint custody, this insane schedules, I wanted to be able to talk to him at all times.
All right, that's fair.
And nobody has a landline anymore, so I could reach him at any time. But He had access to the internet. And when you look something up innocently, like everyone has already mentioned, these pop-ups come up. So I found like 400 pages of porn on my like 10-year-old's phone at the time and had a panic attack. He didn't mean to. He didn't know what it was, but obviously a kid is going to look because they're curious.
He totally knows what it is.
Totally
He didn't. He was absolutely mortified. We sat down and we talked about masturbation, and I told him, this is what porn is. This is what it does to women. This is what it represents. And these women, a lot of them, some of them go into it freely. They go into it's their decision.
Yeah,
They've made
not
the
all of it
choice,
is- yeah.
Right, exactly. But the industry that it represents is not about freedom. It's not about liberty. It's not about choice. And so for him, I told him, you know what, if you need inspiration, and that's okay, let me know, or let my husband know. We'll get you magazines, or we'll get you something else. But porn gives you an unrealistic expectation of women. It gives you an unrealistic expectation of sex.
It gives you an unrealistic expectation of men.
And anal.
Too.
Right.
Because, like, not that I'm, like, diminishing the
It's
whole...
an unrealistic expectation of anal.
It
It's
does.
true.
It
You
totally
can't
does.
smell porn.
Yeah. Or see poo nuggets on a Wheatie.
Exactly.
Or on a Pikachu tip.
Sorry, I just had to make this funny because it was so serious for a second. I was like, can
But,
we sorry
but
about
like,
this?
if I'm being totally honest, I'm not saying that this is any more big than the obvious huge implications of women. But, like, I used to be really self-conscious of my penis size because of pornography. No joke. I'm just being truthful. And
Oh, so you didn't have like a 10-inch dick? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't, and I still don't.
Okay.
Didn't change. Still don't have a 10-inch dick. Sorry.
Never grew miraculously with the penis pills?
But I remember for, like, the longest time, like, really from, like, 8th to 9th grade, I was terrified about anybody seeing my penis. I, like, I wouldn't change in front of people. I was really scared of it because in the porn that I was watching, all the penises were humongous. And I was like, oh, well, I'm young and I'm a kid, blah, blah. But it was like, they were like,
Right.
bah, like a Volkswagen. Here's a Volkswagen. And I'm like, here's a red wagon. And it was,
I'm surprised you said Volkswagen because like the first thing I thought of was
Short
like a
chubby.
fucking bug.
see? So, I mean, yes, there are obviously terrible implications, but I mean, it could also have psychological impact on men. For sure.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I think that you're right in a sense that
Did you just drop your soul?
basically. No, I think you're right in a sense that it does moralize or demoralize women in a sense because there's such a variety out there. But in the same time, they try to reach such a variety of an audience. I think the biggest problem is the easy accessibility of it. Because I mean, to each his own. To each his own. You're going to have that one person that doesn't have anybody that's going to go on the line and find his own kicks to get off, which is his right. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that anybody just surfing the web can find anything that they want so easily and so freely. You don't need a credit card to find what you want. You just
Well, let me-
boom,
Not
it's
anymore,
there.
at
Let me,
least.
let me ask you this question, Todd, and hopefully you can be honest with me. Has porn now, or has it ever, whether it be with your wife or someone else, changed the way that you have sex or want to have sex with your spouse?
Well, that's the thing, and I mean, I don't want to get too personal,
Put her business out there.
put her business out
Yeah.
there or whatever. But
Don't.
in a way, some porn can be educational, to where it's something you can look at and find new ways of pleasuring your partner, or finding new things to do and experience and explore, which you can do with your partner, which is fantastic.
In a way, I agree because
And-
like you could think of different scenarios,
Right, different
like the pool boy
scenarios.
and the rich lady,
You could do that.
or Harry Potter and Hermione.
Right.
Did I think of anything else?
But you could do-
Now I have naked Hermione on my mind.
All right, you can do different scenarios, different positions, different situations, all that kind of stuff.
The
But I think
balance.
where it goes wrong is where, like you said, where maybe somebody looks at it and that's the expectation.
Right.
And to where, so you have like a teenage boy or a teenage girl and they go to this party and they're having, drinking or whatever. And then their expectation of having sex is how they do it in porn, which isn't necessarily what somebody might want. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Look who's here.
Right. Like the first time that I had sex, it was nothing
It
like
was nothing
porn.
like it.
Yeah,
Right.
For sure. I was
I
like, okay, am I done yet? Like, how do I know when I'm done? And and
You knew you were done in 3 seconds.
yeah,
the
I was
first time.
done when I started.
Yeah, you were
remember
done
that-
before you started.
I'm going to put myself on blast. The first time I ever had sex, ever, I was like, oh my God, it's in. It's exact words came out of my mouth because we were struggling.
You said that out loud?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
I was struggling. We were struggling for about 6-7 minutes. This poor Jewish kid. And then finally just, oh my God, it's in. I should have never said that, but whatever.
But I think that's
it's just a funny story
it
because
is a funny story. But I think that's the whole thing is the education part. No one ever talked to me about birds and the bees or told me how to do it. And I had to explore and find out my own self, you know. But at the same time, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 18, you know.
There you go.
But I was so involved with sports. So my opinion, which is what I try to do with my daughters, is have them involved in something, you know, like involved in kind of sports, dancing.
So that sex doesn't have to be their hobby.
Sex doesn't
Yeah,
have
put
to,
them in
sex and drugs
cheerleading.
doesn't have to be their hobby.
No.
Just kidding.
You go to these like towns, whatever these podunk towns that are in the middle of nowhere with nothing. What do they have to do?
Sex and football.
Sex and drugs, you know.
But it's not just that too. Like the way that kids have sex now and the education that they share between each other is terrifying. Like the colored bracelets to the ranking of things that you've done, and it's stuff that
What?
you don't. It's the most
They
horrific
have like the
stuff of
ranking
nightmares.
on lines now where they rank them. You
Or the
know?
colored lipstick you're wearing means what you're down for,
Yeah.
and stuff happens in the bathrooms
do
in
my
middle
lips say?
school.
Oh,
Your lips say
You're not
anal.
very good.
Your lips say
Tickling.
anal.
Oh, jeez. You got the wrong color on. Well,
It's more advanced. It's terrifying.
well, on top of that too, let's take all the sex and pornography and Planned Parenthood. Let's put all that on the side, right? Now, to add to that, we have apps where you can share naked pictures that only last a certain amount of seconds.
Snapchat.
We have a quadrillion porn sites where you could just upload home movies. And that's a category. Home movies. Dumb girlfriend. Underage. College bitches. Slutty bitches in college. Whatever it is. I'm not saying that I call women that. I'm just saying that's the
one horse,
topic.
2 chicks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All this stuff.
How do
And
you
it's
guys
like-
know these names? I'm just kidding.
Because it's dumped into our freaking mainframe on the daily. Tinder. Tinder is an app that is purely decide whether or not you want to fuck a person based on one photograph of them. I find you fuckable. I do not find you fuckable. And then you have to sit there and wait to find if the person that you found fuckable finds you mutually fuckable. How's that for your self-esteem and ego?
Oh, it's funny. I was
Actually, it's not just one picture, it's 5.
But I'm just saying, let's say you finally connect with somebody. How super duper awesome are you going to feel about yourself when, like, option number 73 liked you back?
right.
Whereas, like, the three of us, probably not for you, Michelle, because you're a lot younger. We're all mid to late 30s, early 30s for Firefox. I got your back, girl.
Thanks.
But like I know for sure when you had a guy call your house up until high school, for sure, they had to call your home,
Yeah.
right? And you probably had a phone in your room. Maybe you had your own line. Like
I wasn't allowed.
the cool girls had their own
I
line.
had to hide it under my
Yeah.
beanbag chair.
But your parents answered it, right? The guy had to ask to talk to you, and then you had to go get it, right?
Right.
And then you knew your parents could pick up on the other time and listen in, blah, 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 right? And we had to do the same thing. When we wanted to call a chick, we had to call their parents' house.
Yep. Exactly right.
And there was no cell
Ask
phone.
dad to talk to you know.
Exactly. No cell phone.
So
no
scary.
text messaging. No picture messaging. No bullshit. And now, I was talking, like, my friend has a younger brother that's in high school, and he has been dating. Well, I'm doing air quotes. Bad radio, but I'm doing air quotes. And he's been dating this girl that goes to a different high school for 5 months. They've never spoken to one another on the phone.
What?
They see each other all the time. They hang out. They've only ever text messaged.
So
Yeah.
this is what I was
That's
just going to say
awful.
is like I was just listening to this guy and he made a point. I was watching it the other day and it was funny because he was saying he's like, you know, when we're younger, we're taught and we teach our kids now, you know, like don't talk to strangers, right? Don't get into strangers' cars. And now what do? We employ talking to strangers online to go get in their car.
So true.
You know, so it's like, why, like, where does that come into play? And then I watched, like, I forget what show it was, but it was, like, one of those, like, undercover type television shows, you know, where they do, like, little schemes and skits. And this dad did it to his daughter, where it was this dude, he was, like, text messaging her and talking to her online and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, you know, and she was like, oh, come over. And
it
the
was
dad
the dad?
was in on it.
Oh.
And was in the back of the van and
gangster.
came up to pull up and picked her up, whatever. She jumped right in. And he came from behind with a mask on in the van and grabbed her from behind. And she starts screaming and yelling and this and that. And he pulled off his mask like, it's me, calm down. What the fuck are you doing?
Right.
You know, like this could not have been me. And you could have been gone right here. And no one could have ever seen you again.
Wow. Smart dad props right there.
Right.
That is dad.
You know, and then it ended like he was really pissed off, you know, and then in that particular thing, which I want to say too, because if anybody wants to try it, is like he was pretty pissed off at the beginning. He was like, "What the fuck are you doing? You know, this and that, I can't believe this." But it ended with him consoling her, whatever. I don't know what the word it is, but basically told her like, we need to talk. We need to have a serious talk, you know. And that's the thing. Don't get like crazy angry, but have that talk. Educate.
Well, that's the thing is
Way earlier, though.
Sorry, go ahead.
Way earlier. Way before that. You know?
Okay, I want to talk to all the parents because I'm not a parent.
Hold on. Let me time out you real quick.
That's fine.
Sorry. Just to Todd's point real fast, is that unfortunately, specifically, I think it's evolved a lot now with social media. One of the positive things that comes from social media. But a lot for the longest time, it was like taboo and not okay for dads to talk to their daughters about sex. I feel like we've kind of jumped a wall with that, and not that I look forward to it, but I'm confident when it comes my time to have those conversations with my daughter. I'm confident in my relationship with her. I'm confident in my parenting skills, and I'm confident in my patience to have them from an intellectual patient standpoint. But for the longest time, like I could not even imagine watching my dad sit down and try to talk about sex with me or anybody else. Like he would just be fucking lost. And now that's one of the only positive things that's come from this whole transition in social media and pornography and all these things is that men are a little bit more at the forefront of parenting now to be kind of like side by side with the wife when it comes to like making these tough conversations.
Well, that's the thing is like it's side by side, and I think it needs to be side by side because you have 2 points of view. You know?
It can't be like, the mom's gonna have a secret conversation with the daughter.
Because I can have a conversation with my daughters about sex, and it's going to be from the male side of view, where I'm trying to help them see
what you did,
what I did.
Yeah,
you know, keep them away from people like I was.
These were my golden moves,
right? But then at the same time, I want my wife to be able to talk to them because they need to also understand the women's side of it. You know, because I can't tell them that. Yeah. I don't know what it is like for them. And the same thing goes with sons. Yeah. They need to hear from the moms because they need to understand what it's like to be a woman. Mm-hmm. But then they also need to hear from the dads because they need to know what it's like to be the man side of it.
I remember my mom played me so good when I was 16. I thought I was ready to have sex, right? And somehow, I can't remember, my mom found this out. I'm sure she probably like listened to my call on the phone or something like that. And she's like, hey, I'm gonna take you to the store and I'll help you pick out some condoms. I just want you to be protected, right? I'm like, all right, sweet. So we go to the store, right? And so she does this move where, so I'm standing in front of the condoms. She's at the other end of the aisle, just kind of watching. She's like, if you have any questions, let me know. And I'm looking at all these condoms, right? And it's like 4 pegs wide, 8 pegs deep. And I'm like,
did you get the Magnum condoms?
No, I'm looking at them. I'm looking at them like I'm reading Greek. I'm like, oh my God. Black, rainbow colored. Magnum, delicious flavors, scented,
ribbed.
Yeah, all this shit. And so my mom comes over. She's like, you know what? I think this one's good. Pulls one off the rack. She's like, come on, let's go get it done. We go to the front. And like, I remember like, I was like stoned. I was like, no, like you can't move me. And I'm like, I'm not ready. You just put these down. Let's get out of here. And like now I was like, touche, mom. Well played. But then in the moment, I was like, fucking bitch. Stupid bitch. Anyway, so I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, I have actually a very interesting question. Thank God I thought of it. Would you go, I'm speaking to the parents because I'm not a parent yet. I'm married, but I'm not, it hasn't even crossed my mind. Would you guys go with your sons or daughters to Planned Parenthood for the first time?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Because if I don't, here's the thing that every parent has to understand, male or female, with a male or female son or daughter, is that regardless of how early or late the education comes, it may come earlier than you want, it may come later than, well, I don't think that's such thing. All parents hope it's later. Mm-hmm. It may come earlier because some fucking douche face in school starts talking about this and that, and then you got to have these conversations. As an example, my friend had to tell his 6-year-old daughter what the term rape meant because some guys at school said they were going to rape her. So he had to try to explain that to a 6-year-old, which is unfucking acceptable. But anyway, so my point is, if you don't educate your children on sex,
someone else.
The world will do it for you.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
So,
And I think, in that what you just said, I just wanted to give props to Firefox here for her education with her son, because I think a lot of people that have sons don't think they need to educate them.
Yep.
And then the problem with that is that's where you get what you just said, where you get people in school and they think, they get their education from pornography or the internet or TV or movies, and that's their mentality or that's their expectation of their mentality of how to treat women.
I think it's important too when you're in a dual partnership, when you have a mom and a dad parenting, that both parties talk to the child, because the child is its own person and they're going to decide who they're comfortable with talking to. So if, as a single parent for 9
but
years.
would you take it personally? If, let's just say as an example,
my ego doesn't belong in parenting.
but in your heart of hearts, if, let me think of a cool nickname for him. Hold on. Because your younger one has a super dope nickname.
Right.
So let's call him, if Hammerhead Firefox said, Mom, I don't want to talk to you about this anymore. I'm only going to talk to B about it.
Right.
Who's been on the show. B,
Chip.
I miss you and I love you and you're the best person in the world. But if Hammerhead Firefox was like, hey, I only want to talk to B about it, that really wouldn't bother you?
No, because he's talking to somebody, and he's talking to somebody that I can also talk to. And
so I just want to say that that's a super mature way of handling it that unfortunately I don't think a lot of people are prepared to handle. So I commend you for it. And I think you are a good example. So what would you say is a recommendation for parents? How do we not take it personally? How do we not take the whole conversation of sex? How do we not take it personally? What's the best way to just kind of keep your cool about it?
I think it's impossible to not take it personally. I mean, these are the creatures that you love most on the planet that you would literally die for without even a reason. And I think your heart needs
to... Or go to prison for it, right, Todd?
Exactly. Because I will go to prison.
That's right.
I am not afraid of prison.
But your heart has to be in it, and they have to know that you care, and they have to know that there's boundaries, like, this is what's acceptable. If you decide that you're ready to have sex, I expect, if you make the decision that you're mature enough to have sex, then I would expect you to be mature enough to tell me that you're ready to have sex, so that we can be on the side of prevention. So we can have these conversations, so I can make sure that there's condoms in the bathroom or in the nightstand.
So first step would be then not freaking out when your kid comes to you to have that
first step is having the conversation from the beginning.
Okay.
Talking about the body, being natural.
Is too early?
There's stages, obviously, like when they start using their words, you're not going to start talking about sex. It's not necessary, but you educate them on their body and body safety and what's okay and what's not okay. And you you make it age appropriate, but you leave out the rest of it.
We're just going through right now, like Little Infamous is learning that like, the bathroom is her private time.
Right.
And that's for her only. That's like the stage we're at right now.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So I taught when my two oldest were 3, which my middle one's 3 now, but once they got
Your
to
little
3,
one just got butt ass naked at like a big old kid party we just threw. We heard all this ruckus upstairs. I go upstairs. And Todd's middle one's butt naked with Jester's daughter just chilling, and we're just scrambling to get clothes on these girls. No, obviously, no. I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying it's just funny when like it's just my body. Who cares?
Right.
That was me as a kid. It was so hard to put clothes on me. Like my parents like.
She loves to play dress up and loves to take her clothes off, run around naked and stuff like that. But at the same time, she knows what her privates are. She knows whether
we would all run around naked on the daily if we could. Anyway.
I was like the Jungle Book every day.
Jungle Book?
Yeah.
Just loincloth?
I was Baloo, basically.
All right, that is actually going to do it for us this week. We encourage you to do your own research on Planned Parenthood. This is a very serious cause that is going to maybe not directly affect you, but it will directly affect people that you know and could possibly directly affect your next of kin. So please do your research on Planned Parenthood. Find out ways that you can contribute. Even if you're for the shutting down of Planned Parenthood, we encourage you to go online, educate yourself to the counterpoint and to your own point. And if you feel, then do your part. But if you support the saving of Planned Parenthood, find out ways to contribute, to donate, to petition this upcoming bill. Is that what it is, a bill?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bill. This upcoming bill. And remember to just stay at the forefront of your child's sexual evolution. For us, all of us here at the Infamous Works, I want to thank Firefox for coming back to the show.
Thank you.
For Todd for episode 2.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michelle, as this is probably going to be the last regular episode that you hear Michelle on as she graduates into her own show. And one thing I will say with great pride is that Michelle has gotten comments on her Chronicles already. The show has been played over 100 times in less than 72 hours, right?
What?
In 72 hours. And her whole team has been really pushing the show. So I'm very proud to be a part of it. I'm very proud of what you've accomplished. And I think you're going to go great places.
I hope so too.
So thank you guys, everybody. And remember, audibletrials.com/TIC to get your free copy of whatever book you want that's on audio and a free 30-day trial. Thank you to our iHeart listeners. We appreciate it. Go to www.theinfamouschronicles.com to hear back episodes. Tell your friends and family. And if you haven't already, go to iTunes and give us some good shit.
If I was you, I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. If I was you, I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Infamous Chronicles. Our show is produced by Jeremy Elder, talent acquisition is done by Casey Moran, and operations directed by Paul Sinacori. This show is copywritten Infamous Works, LLC, 2016. All rights are reserved. All of our guests appear signed via waivers. We don't own the rights to any of the music featured on our show. We are just fans of it. Visit us at infamousworks.com or call our offices at 844-4-INFAMOUS.